They promised a brand new era of glamour, transparency, and redemption. But behind the scenes, the old patterns of suspicion, intrigue, and chaos are rearing their heads faster than anyone could have imagined. That is what insiders are whispering about the Golden Globes and their storied organizers, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. After a whirlwind of controversies, ranging from accusations of exclusivity to revelations of questionable perks and scandalous private press events, everyone thought that the group had finally turned the page. So, what in the world is happening right now? And why is the fate of one of the most famous awards shows in Hollywood once again hanging in the balance? Today we will take a deep dive into this tangled web of high-stakes deals, legal stumbling blocks, and old habits that refuse to die. In this extensive exploration, we will uncover the precarious relationship between the Hollywood Foreign Press Association and its new owners, how a seemingly simple transaction turned into a monumental clash of wills, and what this could mean for one of the largest televised award programs on the planet. We will ask, why did the California Attorney General become involved in the first place? Are major networks like Columbia Broadcasting System truly ready to support a Golden Globes event, dominated by the old guard? And how might this entire saga shape the future of awards season? Stay with me, because we are about to follow every intricate turn in this captivating story. Let us start with some groundwork. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association, known widely in entertainment circles as HFPA, has long been responsible for organizing and voting on the Golden Globes. For decades upon decades, they wielded considerable power, despite the fact that their membership was notably small. A handful of international journalists, recognized neither for their rigorous reporting nor their commitment to cultural diversity. The glitz of the Golden Globes broadcast, which historically took place in the opulent Beverly Hilton, often overshadowed the swirling controversies lurking beneath the surface. After all, the Globes have always served as the unofficial curtain raiser to awards season, a star-studded gala that sometimes straddles the line between serious recognition of achievement and effervescent party. Yet over the years, murmurs of bribery or unethical back-scratching tarnished the HFPA's reputation. But things escalated in a big way just a few years ago. Around the time of 2020 or 2021, a flood of scrutiny poured in. Charges of racism, unconscious bias, questionable membership rules, and a lack of accountability burst into the open. While such rumors had circulated for years, never had they received such intense public focus. The press began investigating the membership list. It turned out that the group had exceedingly limited diversity, prompting many insiders to ask, how can an organization with so little global representation truly call itself the Hollywood Foreign Press? Large-scale boycotts began to materialize. Some of the biggest stars in Hollywood either refused to attend the show altogether or openly criticized the HFPA's approach. Then National Broadcasting Company, the network that had broadcast the Golden Globes for many years, stepped back. They essentially said, until there are significant changes within the HFPA, we are out. In the world of broadcast television, that move was seen as a major blow that threatened the very future of the Globes. People questioned whether the show would simply vanish, perhaps replaced by another awards ceremony from a more transparent body of critics. All this led the HFPA to promise enormous reforms. They vowed to shake up their leadership, redo their membership structure, invite a more diverse roster of journalists, and become an open book when it came to ethics. Critically, the group announced that it was ready to end the questionable custom of members being courted with lavish gifts, be they all-expenses-paid trips to exotic film sets or extremely generous gift bags. A wave of relief began to ripple through Hollywood, as some believed real change might finally occur. Enter two particular media tycoons, Jay Penske, the figure behind Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, and Todd Boehly, an investor known for multiple entertainment holdings. These two men orchestrated a purchase deal involving the Golden Globes, apparently taking the brand under their control with the intention of revitalizing and sanitizing the tarnished event. The plan seemed promising on paper. Confident in the rebranding of the Golden Globes, they even went so far as to make a separate broadcast agreement with Columbia Broadcasting System. The stage was set for the occasion to bounce back onto television, possibly with more sparkle and less controversy. One specific eyebrow-raising detail was the offer that Boehly and Penske made to the HFPA members. In exchange for those members stepping aside from some of their long-standing perks, The new owners promised $75,000 a year in salaries. Perhaps it was meant as compensation for lost opportunities and to encourage them not to partake in ethically problematic freebies. Some members were thrilled by this notion, lured by the prospect of steady pay. Others were more skeptical, silently wondering if this arrangement could truly eradicate questionable practices or, on the contrary, simply replace them with new forms of conflict. But here is where the situation becomes complicated. According to certain reports, Todd Boehly and Penske abruptly decided to terminate that arrangement, which left quite a few HFPA members feeling betrayed. Even more curious, it turns out that the sale of the Golden Globes to these figures was not fully greenlighted by the California Attorney General. In the state of California, certain transactions involving nonprofits require thorough oversight, and it appears that the HFPA was initially categorized as a nonprofit organization. The official sign-off never quite came. So, where does that leave us now? Insiders claim that the HFPA, or at least a resurrected version of its leadership, is fighting back hard. Instead of simply accepting that they forfeited control, these individuals appear to be regrouping and attempting to assert their right and to take back the Golden Globes brand itself. This is not just a minor dispute. It could potentially unravel the entire awards show from the inside. One might wonder, do the big networks even want to be involved in a newly resurrected chaos? The earlier arrangement hinged on the promise that the old HFPA was no more. On top of that, Columbia Broadcasting System was presumably ready to invest in a Golden Globes that had been reformed, clean, equitable, and free from the historical baggage that had overshadowed it for years. If the old guard regains power, there is a very real possibility that broadcast partners will throw up their hands in exasperation and walk away. National Broadcasting Company might not be keen to re-establish ties, especially given that they publicly distance themselves in a flurry of moral posturing. And the chances of the American Broadcasting Company, home to the Oscars, jumping in as a savior seems slim. After all, they already spend enormous energy promoting the Academy Awards. This leaves the future of the Golden Globes in question. Are we destined to see yet another confusing saga of negotiations, with new owners and old members throwing legal challenges at each other? Or will calmer heads prevail at the last second, forging a compromise that ensures the show goes on? To many casual observers, the soap opera might appear overblown, but let me tell you, award shows carry significant weight in the entertainment industry. Not merely as glitzy ceremonies, they can define the success of major motion pictures, shape the trajectory of rising stars, and generate massive publicity for all involved. The Golden Globes, in particular, have historically been known for their unpredictability and star-laden guest list, so losing them would be no small matter. Now, if you have been enjoying the intrigue here, this dance of deals undone, frustrated members, and possible legal collisions, please consider tapping that like button. Every signal that you appreciate this deep dive helps keep the conversation going. And trust me, the next developments are set to be even more provocative. Let us move further behind the scenes of this power struggle. The HFPA, prior to the attempted sale, insisted that they had effectively dissolved their prior structure, ensuring that any old questionable practices would not return. How exactly did they plan to do that? They claimed they were launching a plan to expand membership, meticulously screening each prospective journalist for authentic credentials and ensuring diversity was not merely a checkbox but a genuine priority. They declared that the days of shady, expensive perks were over. Gone would be the exclusive junkets that whisked members away to luxurious movie sets around the world. And gone would be attempts by studios to sweeten coverage with lavish dinners. For a moment, it looked like the HFPA had turned a corner. Awards watchers, who track whether Academy Awards, Critics' Choice Awards, and Golden Globes truly reflect artistic excellence, expressed a cautious optimism. Given how popular the Golden Globes telecast was for so many years, business insiders wanted to see it back on the air, untainted by scandal. Of course, the event has always been overshadowed by the Oscars in terms of prestige, but the Globes often delivered more lighthearted fun, especially in the comedic categories. Then Penske and Boehly, owners of major entertainment outlets and production companies, stepped in, presumably with a desire to run the show as a modern, streamlined business. Their involvement was crucial because, as owners of the event, they naturally had an incentive to keep the broadcast a hot ticket for sponsors and audiences alike. They partnered with Dick Clark Productions for the actual televised spectacle, gaining synergy from a company with a long track record of producing live events, from New Year's Eve celebrations to award ceremonies. And so the pieces seemed to fall into place, with rumors circulating that Columbia Broadcasting System would be the new home, while the HFPA would remain only in name, if that. But apparently, the HFPA's members never lost their hunger for control. The difference, from the perspective of many watchers, is that the HFPA no longer had the moral or financial high ground. Under suspicion for questionable ethics and facing widespread condemnation for lacking diversity, they had lost broadcast partners and many valuable supporters in Hollywood. One might wonder how any leftover group from the HFPA could muster the influence to undermine the New Deal, but a closer look reveals that the intellectual property and the rights to the Golden Globes name may not have been completely transferred. If the California Attorney General never fully approved the arrangement, the HFPA can argue that the entire transaction is invalid. Given that the costs of mounting a major awards show are astronomical, there is a real possibility that all parties involved, Penske, Boehly, and the HFPA, are now locked in an expensive standoff, with each side reluctant to step down. Meanwhile, the rest of Hollywood is left asking, will we actually see a Golden Globe ceremony next year? If we do, who will be running it, and under what conditions? Some even speculate that if the HFPA cannot pull itself together, the Golden Globes might end up streaming on a smaller platform, or might be forced to partner with an unconventional broadcaster. This is not the first time that the Golden Globes have been through a scandal. If we glance back several decades, controversies have cropped up regularly. In hoarier times, certain winners raised eyebrows, prompting suspicions that the HFPA was awarding prizes in exchange for exclusives or behind-the-scenes concessions. An infamous anecdote is the awarding of a recognized film prize to a show that had barely registered with critics anywhere else. This kind of pattern is precisely what critics argue must never happen again. When you pit old traditions against brand-new ambitions, sparks inevitably fly. Particularly interesting is the timing. We are in 2025, an era when social justice is a central fixture in public discourse, and the entertainment industry is explicitly working to rectify decades of inequity and favoritism. The HFPA's secret membership, as it was often dubbed, stands in direct contrast to these goals. So, if the old HFPA tries to recapture the Golden Globes, could we see a massive backlash from Hollywood heavyweights who are unwilling to support what they perceive as a reactionary group, bent on returning to the old gravy train? On the other hand, glitzy awards season is a big moneymaker, so will that financial incentive prove too tempting for all sides to pass up? Regardless of how you look at it, the drama swirling around the Golden Globes has once again captured imaginations. Not just in Los Angeles, but around the globe, pun intended. If you have found yourself suddenly engrossed by this labyrinth of intrigue, where million-dollar deals clash with long-standing personal grudges, why not subscribe for more insight and stay up to date on all future developments? That way, you will never miss the breaking news on this topic, and many more in the world of entertainment. Now, let us shine a light on some tangential but important elements of the story. One puzzle piece is the marketing and sponsorship side of the Golden Globes. In the early 2010s, the ceremony was a hot property, attracting big ratings and robust advertising dollars. Brands clamored to be associated with a carefree, champagne-fueled night of A-list mingling and comedic monologues. Much of that allure depended on the show's sense of spontaneity and the fact that the Golden Globes were known less for strict, formal etiquette and more for a lighthearted atmosphere. If that brand identity is compromised by controversies or overshadowed by allegations of corruption, advertisers might pull back. They do not want to risk tarnishing their product's image by associating with a questionable event. In a world of lightning-fast social media rebukes, companies have become extremely vigilant. Moreover, the newly minted owners, who presumably poured millions of dollars into this acquisition, will not want to see their investment vanish into thin air. Todd Boehly has a track record of supporting big ventures that typically re-emerge as stronger, more profitable undertakings. Penske, controlling a vast swath of entertainment media, including Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and Rolling Stone, among others, generally knows how to generate buzz. So, if they are serious about resurrecting and modernizing the Golden Globes, they will have an incentive to fight tooth and nail against any attempt by the HFPA to reclaim power and revert to an old model. And that sets the stage for a potentially bruising litigation, or at least a messy negotiation behind the scenes. What might the next few months, or even the next year, look like as this situation develops? Observers suggest that the first big question is whether the California Attorney General will ultimately approve or reject the sale. Given that events involving nonprofits can be heavily scrutinized, it is not as if the HFPA can simply wave a magic wand and declare the new owners invalid. For the HFPA to dismantle a transaction, they will likely need to demonstrate that material misrepresentations were made, or that the structure of the deal was inherently flawed. Meanwhile, Penske and Boehly would presumably put forth their own legal arguments to confirm that everything is above board. If the sale is fully nullified, we might see the HFPA back at the helm, but with a severely compromised reputation. At that point, the question is, would CBS or any broadcaster risk airing a ceremony that could reignite unflattering headlines and public outcry? The real possibility is that major networks, mindful of their own brand safety, could walk away, leaving the Golden Globes homeless on the broadcast calendar. Alternatively, a streaming service might step in, hoping that the novelty of broadcasting a once powerful but currently shaky award show could pay off in new subscribers. Another angle to consider is that the Critics' Choice Awards might pick up the slack. They already air on the E! Channel and the USA Network a week or so before the Golden Globes usually take place. Over the past decade, the Critics' Choice Awards have gained credibility for their honest approach. Their membership includes recognized voices from established publications, and there has been far less clamor about unethical practices. If the Golden Globes slip further into confusion, the Critics' Choice Awards might be poised to become the next big tentpole event ahead of the Academy Awards. Some might even argue that we are witnessing a slow shift in focus, where the industry's publicity machine moves its attention from an embattled ceremony to something more stable and well-respected. Let us not forget the historical habit of the HFPA to cling to the Globes by any means necessary. Indeed, there is a notorious resilience about this group. If you read the tabloids or trade magazines, you have likely seen stories about lavish press conferences, members flying to far-flung locales, and big names being coerced into promotional obligations. The worry among critics is that if the HFPA ever fully regains control with no oversight, it will not be long before their old ways return, whether intentionally or not. And that, of course, is a scenario that the new owners presumably want to avoid. Meanwhile, for the average movie or television fan, the real interest might simply be, am I going to see the Golden Globes on television again? Will it still have that fun atmosphere? Or is it going to be overshadowed by all these behind-the-scenes squabbles? Another pressing question is how the winners would be selected if the membership is in disarray. In that sense, the HFPA's credibility might rest on whether newer, more diverse members remain part of the process, or if the original leadership dismisses them in a power grab. In a world where so many industries are facing calls for transparency, the Golden Globes fiasco stands as a cautionary tale. It is a reminder that exclusive clubs operating behind closed doors can be toppled if they are not willing to adapt to the demands of accountability and fairness. Yet, ironically, we are watching as those same exclusive clubs try to reassert dominance. Will they succeed, or will the outcry from Hollywood, sponsors, and the viewing public put a stop to it? Where do we go from here? Well, that might depend on who ultimately wins in the legal front. If Todd, Boehly, and Jay Penske manage to secure final approval from authorities, they might be able to push forward with their modernization plan, effectively sidelining the older HFPA leadership. If not, if the deal is blocked, all bets are off. We could see the Golden Globes vanish for a while, or attempt a smaller-scale revival that lacks the glitz we have come to expect. This saga is circling the real question of power. Who gets to decide which films and performances are celebrated, and on what criteria? Are we going to see the circle of critics expand to represent a true global viewpoint, or are we doomed to a small coterie of questionable voters returning to the shadows once again? The stakes are surprisingly large for an industry that thrives on prestige and marketing synergy. The fact that we are still uncertain about how it will end only underscores the level of complexity. At the moment, the best any of us can do is watch, wait, and occasionally marvel at the spectacle of Hollywood politics at its grandest. No matter how glamorous Tinseltown might be, Controversies like these show that behind the red carpets and gilded trophies is a minefield of business deals, personal feuds, and legal complexities. For many fans, it is disheartening to see an iconic ceremony overshadowed by repeated internal strife. But for the cynics among us, it only confirms the long-held suspicion that the Golden Globes have always thrived on more drama off-stage than on-stage. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey through the Golden Globes labyrinth, where new owners, old members, and the watchful eyes of state authorities are staging a complicated performance that threatens to overshadow the actual awarding of trophies. If you have found yourself swept up in the drama, go ahead and show your support. Together, we can keep exploring hidden facets of the entertainment world, bringing to light the stories that shape what we see on our screens. Wherever the chips fall, one thing is clear. The Golden Globes, whether they end up in the hands of the old HFPA or under the purview of fresh ownership, will not be short of drama. It is a high-wire act with network contracts on one side, moral imperatives on the other, and an impassioned band of critics, stars, and viewers all anxiously waiting to see if the Globes can indeed deliver on their promise of reinvention, or if those ugly heads of the past are ready to reclaim the spotlight once more. Strap in, because in Hollywood, the show always goes on, one way or another.